Hey everybody, my name is Aaron Shane. Welcome to another Habitat Now. It's an honor to have you join me as we visit artist Brent Kee Young from his studio in Ohio. Brent is a long time member of our Habitat family, and we love him, love his work, and I know you love his work. It's all of you have his pieces or have seen them in person because he is making some of the best work of his career now, and he's making huge installations. But I want to go through a little housekeeping right now, real quick, before we start and talk about our upcoming international. So, as many of you know, we do these Zooms every Saturday. I think if everything goes right, I'm going to be off next week, but Regina may be doing a Zoom. I have a birthday party for my kids, and my daughter has a recital. You remember how this goes, so I'll be away for the weekend, but we may have some. Regina has something in the can we're working on. NGG's continuing. We just had one last weekend with an amazing, talented artist from Europe. She will be here for the gas experience, and probably I invited her to our Glass 51 show too, so we'll see if we have a chance to meet her. But these continue, and I'm excited to I'm already getting names together for next year's exhibition. If you guys have any artists that you think need attention, let me know. I'm always open to new ideas. I get a lot of the ideas from other artists, but clients and friends of mine are great as well. So the International is coming up. The very first event is June 4th. We have the first ever artist gala celebrated across the street from Habitat at a glassblowing facility that just happened to open up called Axiom. So it's 7 p.m. The VIPs who come to our international are invited, and everybody else is the artists and museum people. There is a link to RSVP. If you are part of our international, you don't need to RSVP, you're going anyway. But if you're a local artist or museum person that wants to come, I'll send you the link for the ticket tailor so you can join us. The auction is online. We have 49 pieces. Many of you participated in the Rago auction yesterday. I hope many of you had some success with that. There were some fun pieces for sale. I know they had the fundraiser for Ukraine as well. I hope that went well as planned. But time to talk about the Habitat Masterworks auction. This is our 35th auction, and it is online right now on our Masterworks website. You save money on the premium. You can get it down to 20% premium if you bid with our auction system. If you bid with me by phone or email or by silent bid or phone, it gets down to 16% if you pay by check. So I know Rago's auctions have a certain premium, and they're even more expensive on live auctioneers, but we still have the lowest premiums in the business. So place your bids. All right, enough formality. Brent, you're here. Say hello to everybody. I would like
Hi,
you to join
everybody.
us.
Yeah. Do I share my screen now?
Not yet. We're going to play the video. So just say hello.
Okay. Yes. And to reiterate, thank you for inviting me. And I have been a long associate with the gallery going back into the 70s at the very beginning. So my career is about parallel with the gallery about the same time. So go ahead and play that video, and then we'll start.
Yeah. So Brett has he'll talk more about his public displays and process during the video, and his work is always some of the most impressive in the gallery. People walk through and see his work, and it just really adds to the overall experience, and we're grateful to have him here at Habitat. So Brent, will you tell us a little about the video, or should I just press play? What should I do?
It's pretty self-explanatory. It was produced as a recipient from the Cleveland Arts Prize, but it was produced right after I started the current Matrix series. So go ahead and play it.
Sure.
This is one part of a process that's much larger. Right now it's tedium. I'm just trying to create this matrix, this line of glass that meanders organically into this area right here and fill it so that it's even throughout. So the whole piece will have to get this kind of treatment. And then we're going to build out to the next cylinder and then put it inside another cube. I'm originally from California. Born in Los Angeles, raised in the Central Valley, Modesto. Went on to San Jose State University in engineering. I had a friend at San Jose that introduced me to the ceramics department there. I had gone into engineering to make stuff. The way you built was so formulaized that the ceramics seemed to resonate with me more than engineering, and I had this kind of catharsis and decided that I would change majors. Because this glass that we're using is such a low coefficient of expansion, we can build in this manner, and it takes a lot of shock, so we can put the torch right on it like this, and it's cold, and it can go from cold to a couple of thousand degrees in the matter of seconds. It's very durable and very rugged. and we're working with elements that are thin enough to take that kind of shock as well. I think that my studies in school in engineering were great background for understanding how to work with materials. You know, understanding the physics of this particular glass as opposed to earlier works that were done in soda lime glass helps me. In high school, I had a geometry teacher that was really great. His name was J. Patty. He made geometry so much fun. There were so many theorems and all this stuff you kind of had to memorize. But he taught geometry more like a foreign language. He'd say a theorem and then he'd have the students say it out loud and repeat it. He was kind of full of this kind of crazy idea, and I think we learned geometry through osmosis rather than having it kind of pounded into us. But I do go back to geometry a lot in terms of the way I construct things and look at things. Next door to the studio here, there was a Wonder Bread factory. This was a number of years ago, and they tore that down. When they raised that building, at the end, they were shaking all the concrete out of this pile of rebar, and they had a rat's nest of reinforcing rod the size of a house that was left over from the deconstruction. I thought it would be interesting and fun to go in there and weld that rebar together and then take a transit, line that thing up, and cut it into a geometric shape. I tried building a piece out of glass with that, and I constructed it in a way that was a matrix of interconnected glass elements. I showed that in the faculty show, and they were pretty excited to see the glass in this way, and there was a lot of curiosity as to how I was able to make the thing. So that was encouraging, and I started building in that manner. I like to say that life is long, and there's a lot of work left in all of us, so I don't think we're going to retire from making work. I think that's something that we're going to be doing until forever, maybe, who knows.
Very, very interesting, Brent, the way you can create and create and create and create. And I hope you do continue to keep creating.
I'm going to be doing that. How about I screen share now?
Yeah, let me kick it over real quick and stop sharing. Feel free to take over the screen.
Okay, and
feel free to click the button when you're ready. I'm gonna make sure I have your website up on my end too in the background.
Okay, here.
There we go. Okay.
What happened to my thing here? Let's see if this is going to work.
Sure. Just, you got to share the screen first so we can see what you're looking at.
Oh, okay. Right. I didn't do that.
Not yet. Nope. I had to take it back when I was taking the screen over.
All right.
Could have left yours up, I guess, but I didn't think about that till now.
How are we doing now? Is that better?
We're good now. You can get the image open.
Okay. So what I have today for you guys is very informal, but it's rather than something that is a dialogue of all my travels and things and the pieces. I have a little bit of that, but more of how the pieces are made, because a lot of people are asking me how I build the pieces. So I'm going to back up a little bit with this grouping and then talk a little about my early work and then go through a couple of different things. I mentioned geometry as one, and then I have a group of slides that are more narrative in another grouping here. Let me see here.
Got some fans commenting already too.
Okay.
Very good. We're good.
We're good?
We're good.
So let's see, to start out, a lot of my influences early on were with travel in the Southwest. While I was teaching, we had summers off, so we could travel out to California and visit family, and we would travel one direction or another. And my engineering studies, I was very interested in the topography of the landscape of the West and the colors and the way things were to see out there. There was so much to see. So every year for 12, 15 years, we were traveling out that way in different areas. This is a slot canyon in Page, Arizona. And this is some early work in my clay work. I could have gone to school in ceramics, but Alfred had called me and asked if I would come in glass instead. So I kind of continued my glass career at Alfred and then came to Cleveland in early 70s to start the program at the Cleveland Institute of Art. So clay and the landscape was a big part of my early, and still it is, influences me a lot. I'd like you to just look at the way this piece is cut and articulated. Here's some cylinders here and the landscape in this, and just kind of remember that a little bit here. Early work was based on nature, of course. I did a group called the Fossil Series in the 70s. I started and I began my flame working back then. Here are some fossil, clear glass fossil like images from fishing. These are ammonite shapes. Here's a trilobite shape. So these are about the size of a piece of bacon, but they're all flame worked and used in producing work like this, which you may have seen previously. So there are these interior negative relief impressions that are in blown forms. And I did a number of these every year while I was teaching, but I also did art fair stuff. But people were trying to figure out how I made these, and until I started doing workshops and demonstrating, even the glass community thought I was engraving these and carving these out and then filling them somehow, but when they were actually flame worked and using that. This is one of the finishing pieces from that group. This piece is, I think, at the Museum of Glass in Tacoma. Other places that ideas come from nature. This is an octopus leg. And it's not a far stretch from that to clay. These are clay lookalikes that I built to work into a sculpture. Here's a detail of a sculpture. So this is cast glass, which I did quite a bit of also early on before I started the Matrix series. And I was working with geometry too then. So these big blocks of glass with these ammonites and other natural images are built into them. The way things are truncated is another place that ideas come from. Here's a hand-cut fish, tuna at the fish market in Tokyo. And here is a bamboo that has been sliced open, looked at. So I do think that cutting things and looking at them through the inside, and it kind of redefines the way you look at things. So it's helps you understand what the form is about. Here's a roof of a temple in Japan that's kind of heavily shingled and articulated. And here is a water ewer at another temple in Japan. And here is a casting again from earlier period. So you can see the geometric structure again, and this kind of articulation in the carving and the texture on the side. And here's our natural form again. So the natural form and nature and our man-made form together are kind of one of the things that is a recurring theme. Space is important in my work. The ambiguity of this idea in this casting can be seen more clearly. The negative space of this part of the vessel ends up being the positive space in the sea of the matrix around it. So there's kind of a reversal of roles. I thought that was very interesting. And it's the same thing with the fossil period, fossil blown pieces. What you see is the negative space, and it's there, and rather than the positive space that's around it. Here's a building in Cleveland, and this is the beginning of that matrix idea that started in 2004. And you see this everywhere. If there weren't safety issues, it might be an interesting public project to do something like that. This is, everybody recognizes this. Light. It was mentioned earlier today about light coming in. The pieces that I'm doing now are defined by the glints of light although the forms are constructed, it's the light that really carries the shape. And you can see forms develop that particular way. This is very simple. Everybody recognizes this. This is a brain coral. So that kind of matrix texture. This is an aerial view of a subdivision. For pretty much 9 years while I was going through undergraduate school and graduate school, I worked at the civil engineering office in Modesto, and I'd fly back there or go back there and work to make money to get through school. So, but I would design subdivisions and help with that, grading and drainage plans, which involved tubing and build places for water drainage. California has this big water problem. So check out this form, right? And check out this, it's pretty obvious what's going on here. This is another image from the Slot Canyon out there with a tumbleweed caught inside there. It's something that I use, that idea. Okay, let me move on. You guys catching the idea here? Okay. Okay. So I mentioned earlier in that video about geometry, here's one thought that I can carry and kind of go through building a piece. This is what they call a catenary arch. It's upside down in terms of an arch right now, but it's defined by a rope or a chain that is hanging, and it does not carry with it an equation, like a mathematical equation, like a parabola, but it is a physical way of creating an arch that can be self-supporting. And if you turn this over, you get an arch like this. So it's something that I use. This is Familia Sagrada. Some of you have been there. I have not. It's on my list of places to go, but Gaudí used the arch a lot. Here's a catenary arch right here. Here's a catenary arch here. There's one here. And if you go throughout his structures, you'll find it everywhere. And it's very self-supporting. We use them in building kilns. Here's an interior of a hallway of a hotel there. So here's a catenary. You can articulate it by pulling on it and changing the shape. So there you go here. And here's a construction of a piece called Tai Tai's fan that I had built a while back. It's in the collection there at Habatat. So you take this arch and then you put it on, build it up and put it on paper, cut it apart, build glass elements that follow these lines, and then build a structure over which I can build a piece. Here is the cross section, which is elliptical of the previous image. So this is going to be an ellipse in cross section. So, and here's the piece being built. So you can see that the interior here, those are those, and then this is the exterior form, and this is the ellipse around the inside, and the actual form is being built over the interior form, which is all that construction, and this is the interior form is built out of all of this stuff. Kind of crazy. It's a silly.
And then you flip the whole thing upside down.
Then flip it all upside down and put it on a platform and build it. So, and then construct like the base. The very first pieces I made had wood bases with metal armatures holding them, and I went away from that immediately to using all glass in the pieces. It just seemed to make more sense, and they become much more complicated to build, but contiguously, they just looked much better. And I was able to use both forms into things. Here's that piece.
Beautiful.
It's yeah, it's great. Tai Tai is a grandmother in Chinese. So here's another thought. This is people wonder how the spheres are built in some of the pieces. This is an armature for building a sphere. So in math, there's a thing called volumes of solid revolution, about an vertical axis and a horizontal axis. And it's a rotating around this axis, this vertical axis. So I build this shape, which is like armature, and then I rotate it. Can you see it? I tried to take a slide so that you can see it being rotated. So it rotates around. This is the actual piece. This is the armature. So in this image, you can see that there's a space here, but it tells me where in space I can build so that I'm not just fumbling around, like knowing where exactly I'm supposed to be at a certain point. And here is the hemisphere being built. So are you catching the idea? So this is built around a form, and the form rotates to give me a shape that is.
It really gives you an idea how much time you put in each and every piece.
That's not, yeah, it's kind of crazy. And all the pieces are built individually. So there's a different form and for construction, from idea to how to build it, to develop the building idea for each piece. And then, you know, from the thumbnail to the actual starting of the execution and building of the piece, it just takes an inordinate amount of time. But, you know, what have you got to do? It's what do you have to do? Here's a maquette, and you can see the kind of meander here. This is like in map drawing, this is a convention that you put in maps to denote like a river. And here is a glass element that is there from the actual full-size template. And here is a sphere inside a cube being built. So the sphere is done first, and then it's the cube is built around it. And here's the finished piece here. This is called Cubism 8, suspended floating. These elements look like they come off, but they're actually held up by the sphere itself.
So if you go back a slide real quick,
sure,
you can kind of see you've removed portions. Is that what's happening? Okay. Yeah.
Since the pieces are constructed, I can go ahead and build and then remove parts that are supporting, and in order to achieve the here, this area in here was supported at one time, but once I got it supported by the interior, I was able to structurally remove parts of here so that I could create some negative space and some tension in the piece to give it that kind of wondering whether or not it could actually exist.
On that same note, we got a question from Myra saying, do you visually see the pieces as you are designing them?
I generally design them first. And I'll show you, I think I might have a sketch here, but yes, I do visually see them not only in the beginning, but as I build them, I'm following a template, and then once in a while I'll change a little bit. Sometimes I'll take something out or put something in. But yeah, I work with the piece while I'm working on it for sure. Does that answer that question?
Myra gives us a nod.
Okay. If anybody's been to the beach, they've done this maybe. Aaron, you might do this with your kids, right?
Karen's, right?
Huh? Yeah.
Karen's stacking.
Yeah. Here's a smaller cube being built. You can see that I'm putting two halves together. Here's a cube being put around. Okay, here's a, okay,
Looks familiar, huh?
yeah, here we go. So we did a couple of these
Shout out to Myra and
last
Hale.
year.
Beautiful.
Yeah, the idea here is the precariousness of the material and the way they're built, the fragile nature of the material, it being glass, and putting it in a structure that kind of emphasizes it. The pieces are stable, of course, but you know, you as the audience, the viewer, and myself learn more about the material from the work that I do.
Speaking of the delicateness of the work, people ask me all the time in the gallery, like, how do you move these and take care of them? They're actually very structurally sound. The way that Brent creates them are very, very strong as in structure. Now, obviously, there's always incidents where rings might hit or, you know, catastrophes happen, but overall, they are very sound and structurally sound pieces. We have another question from the audience asking about um, do they come apart for shipping, and what kind of glass is used?
Okay, going back to your first point, two, this piece of Robin Greaves back here, I'm pretty sure that is, let's say, or I'm not going to use that, but because my pieces are built, and sometimes during construction, like I might not like the way I've built this here, so I'll take it apart and put it back together the way I like it. Do you understand where I'm going with that?
Mhm.
So the pieces can be worked on at any point and deconstructed and reconstructed. I build a shipping container. You can ask Rob about those to move them. Sometimes they do come apart. Like the multiple piece that I'll show later is shipped in like 8 crates or 4 crates. And sometimes we'll put 2 pieces in one, 2 pieces of one piece that is in sections in crates. This piece, for example, I think it did have 2 crates. It had a crate for the main section and then a crate for this section, which emphasizes the way, not only the way it's built, but the way it's been truncated so that you can understand it more fully by moving this one section away and looking at it. Does that make sense? I hope it does.
I'll add a little bit to that with the creating of each piece, which is definitely a necessity with high density foam to hold the forms. And then a lot of times Brent actually brings them to us themselves, though we have shipped the work across the country on pallets.
Oh yeah, yeah. I haven't shipped anything overseas yet, but they've gone all the way up across the country. There's a pair of very nice oars that are hanging at Hotel Murano. I don't have an image of that over the fireplace there. If you're out there to see the Glass Museum, stay at that hotel. And the oars are 9 feet long, and they were shipped all around the country before they got up to Hotel Murano and then installed up there. So we build a crate. One of the things I tried not to do was to have the shipping containers be a deciding factor on the forms. I'd rather decide on how to make the form and build the form or complete the idea, and then rely on kind of my engineering skill to design the crate to put it in. I didn't want to put the cart before the horse, so to speak. Here's another piece. I'll kind of bump through these. I think how are we doing for time?
We're doing okay. Keep bumping.
Here's the catenary arch again in full scale. Cut these templates apart. Build these wands to build over. So I build an arc form. Here's an ellipse in cross section. So it's cross-sectionally elliptical, but a catenary in volume in construction. Here is a partial build. And here's an inside and an outside view.
Speaking of inside and outside, is there what is it when considering the weight of the inner element versus the outer frame, or a top element over a bottom element? Is there a certain math you use to make sure the weight is supported properly?
No,
Okay.
no, it's physical. It's totally physical. You know, I build it and then as I'm working with it, I'm feeling kind of constantly adjusting it and trying to understand what's going on, and I'll build it till it supports. And if I want something minimal, then I'll stop there. And if I want to use it as an element, the support parts as an element, then I'll keep adding until it's supported, visually.
Okay, so the answer is on the fly. Got it. That's how it
Yeah.
goes. Perfectly
Yeah.
answered.
I think from experience of building that very first piece, I'm always kind of in touch with the physics of the material. And, you know, I've been working in glass since 1969. So I have a fairly good, and because of the way I studied physics in school too, I've kind of developed, I think, a sensitivity to how the material behaves.
Nice to know. You have, beyond your mathematician skills, you're also a scientist. Good to know.
I don't know about that. So here's that these kind of meanders again in this brain coral, and here's, you know, influenced from that texture, that matrix texture. Okay, turned over and supported, you know, it's all supported on this base. This piece is at the Cleveland Museum of Art. It's totally geometric. Here's your arches and some stanchions that are rectilinear. It's called catenary ellipsoid bi. So there's two catenaries in it. The ellipsoid refers to that shape, that is the cross section, and the bi refers to the two stanchions that are there. Here's another rotational idea. This part here is the interior wand armature that goes around while I'm working. And then here is a defined cylinder. This ends up being a cylinder, a different pattern, of course. This is to be emulate the shape of a test tube. And there's an elliptical cross section on the outside. And these are let's see, this is like a double helix, and the reference is to a DNA molecule. Here's that piece. I think I mentioned earlier, this piece might be up in the office near where Deb sits. Is that right?
It's upstairs. It's not in the office anymore. It's nearby the office.
Cool. So here you can see this a little bit more clearly. Here's the wand that I'm calling the armature that moves around, and then here is a torch, and we're working on a shape here. This is one of those major pieces you asked about shipping. It's shipped in 4 crates, I think, to move sections. And I wanted to build a piece that was interactive, so I designed this thing at like 4 o'clock in the morning. But it's one of the cubism pieces that when you look at it in the end, it has all these sections. There's 8 pieces to it, 4 cubes that are truncated. Here's that cut idea again, so that they can be reversed and articulated in a way that lets them come apart. And from one end, you can kind of bend down and look through the whole thing, and the cylinder is online, you know, all the way through the whole piece. So here it is at the Akron Art Museum, that piece.
Someone asked the size of that piece. You know the scale off the top of your head?
Yeah. The linear size can vary. In conception, I thought that possibly we could have 5 sections. Oh, that was interesting. 5 sections on one side and 3 sections on another side. But the way it's presented now, The Imagine Museum has this piece. I think it's about 16 feet from one end to the other. And it's put on a mirror so that you can see it from one end, and you can walk up to it and look at your friend down at the other end. And it's interactive in that way. It's a very ambitious piece, and it's pretty effective that way. Okay. Here, let me skip that.
It was fun unpacking that piece.
I bet.
And then packing it in each
Yeah.
one in its own crate.
So there's the macro and the micro. Another thought is this narrative thought. I don't know how to explain it, but I thought about having a show sometime called Illuminating the Common, but that's part of one of the narratives, and everybody recognizes what this is. Aaron said something this morning about stopping at Costco and picking up 5 gallons of milk for his brooding family, and everybody's growing. So one of the artists, one of the things we're trying to do is be abstract, but another thing we're trying to do is invite people into our work and have them kind of understanding what we do. So this is and a lot of people use glass its own nature to bring people into the work because of its inherent beauty. I do that, but I also like to bring them in at a different level. So some of the pieces that I do that have a narrative are common things from every day that we can see. So here's and then I decide, well, how am I going to build this? So I have to build an armature, just completely constructed, and then build over this armature. So I did a few of these. Here, for technical reasons, I built it so that I could take it apart and then put it back together again. So this is, let's see. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. 3 bags full. This is from a nursery rhyme. We all visit museums. This is one of my favorite objects at the Cleveland Museum of Art. It's an attic black figure vase. And I just love the architecture of these handles. Most of them have kind of a boss that comes out of the shoulder of the vase, but this one had one that was connected up here at the top and the bottom, and the top was articulated in a way that had these bases, these handles that fit to the top of the piece. So that was fascinating to me, and it's a nod to our history. I'm absolutely positive that whatever team built this piece took a very, very long time, longer than I did to build that piece. So here's a scale drawing of my rendition of that piece. This is all imaginary. I didn't go down and measure it, but I just took a picture of it and drew it. So let's just flip this over, right? And I'm going to show you the sections. Here's a section from here to here. So that was built separately. This was built separately. Even this little foot in here was built as a separate piece. So there's a separate armature for that. And from here to here in this throat, the throat of this vase. So can you see what's going on here?
Upside down at the moment.
So this part rotates around this thing to give me a rotational place, so I can figure out where in space all these elements have to end up when I'm building it. So here's a rough end, and this is there. So I'm building around this armature as I'm rotating it. So the rod may stand up only to here, and then this is placed right next to it. Then I'll move this armature over an inch, and then I'll build over an inch, and then I'll move it a quarter of an inch, and then I'll build up a quarter of an inch away vertically and follow it, and then I'll move this over to here, and then follow it along here and then back down to support it. So this element is self-supporting, being supported down here. I hope that helps. I don't know, but it sure helps me. So here, this is kind of explanatory. And here we are I'm starting to build in a little bit on this piece. And here's the river coming through it here. Here's the base already assembled in its multiple parts put onto this part. And here is the form. So that gives me an exactness for the form. The buns were asking about how we make this form so accurate. And it doesn't end up being accurate at this point. But as we go along, we can, before we start really filling in and really supporting everything, we can still move these walls individually, elements a little bit in and out to get them to fall in line with the shape. So it's constantly adjusting until we're done. And we decide there, my wife is a quilt maker, and you know, it's for her, it seems to me, for her, it's hard to decide when a piece is finished. So it's like that with these pieces too. We've got to work on them. We could continue to work on ad infinitum, but you know, at some point we have to say, well, this is it. And it's accurate enough to be compelling, and that's where we stop. So here's the front river, and here's the river in the background. That image that I had of the schooling fish, so is poignant, pertinent to what I'm doing, because we're not really looking at the glass. We're looking at little hints of light that the glass collects and reflects out, so we can catch the light in a different way, and it defines all these forms.
Got a weird question for you while you're talking about this beautiful
Sure.
piece. And shout out to Malcolm and Bund who are enjoying this piece, and Eve, Malcolm and Eve. How big are the borosilica pieces of glass you start with? You must get them shipped to you.
Yeah.
How
Yeah, they're
big is it?
borosilica glass, and they come in either 3 or 5 foot lengths. I'm using 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 millimeter rods, but in the final pieces, you know, during construction, I'm using the 5 millimeter and the 4 millimeter for the armatures, but during the construction, I'm using mainly 5 millimeter and 4 millimeter and 3 millimeter. Like 7 millimeter is too thick for what I'm doing, but it's okay for construction.
Okay, and in the construction part, like, just out of curiosity, you're not holding a 3-foot piece of glass as you're moving up and down, right? You usually chop them down to make them more versatile, or you use the full rod?
Yeah. When I'm working with the torch, the pieces are about 18 inches long.
Okay, that's what I got. Gotcha.
Okay, yeah.
Thank you. Beautiful work. Beautiful.
You people falling asleep yet?
Nope, we're diving in because it's incredible to see what you create and do. And
so this is our formal image of that piece. I'm happy this piece has found a wonderful home.
Thank you. We adore it. Thank you so much for making it for us. We love it.
Yeah, if it's lit, it's a stunning thought, the whole thing. Here's another idea to break away from that. Everybody recognizes this form. And the idea here, the narrative here, is like the handmade, of course, but also the mass of steel, what the physical activity that happens with this form, forging, the narrative that happens with that idea of forge, and the different ways that you can take that meaning in terms of the language of that word, and also the language of the material that is being used. Here's a horn being built. In this case, the piece can't be built around an armature, so I drew it and built it in space in frame first. and had to figure out ways to do like a compound curve and other things to put this together. So you can see what's going on here. It's taking shape. And here is one of the pieces. I think this piece here, which has a different treatment for this kind of, I call this a shimmer texture, because the light shimmers in different ways to catch the light. I'm pretty sure you have this piece up there.
Yep, it's on our website.
Yeah. I could do travelogue for all day. These are the Grand Tetons, and this is the Snake River, one of our favorite places to travel to. We've spent time here. My wife even spent time here at the foot of the Tetons when she was a youngster. So it's something. Our topography in the United States is wonderful. It's great. Here's a tree on that same trip. Now, because of snowfall and wind, it kind of forces you to look at this tree in a different way. Okay, here is a piece titled Snake River Sculpture, Snake River Shelter, sorry. And it's about our environment, about the river, about shelter, about what the house is, and how we should be protecting our environment somehow and taking care of it. We are wards of the place that we live in. Who knows? There might be a day when we're looking at my work and we won't be able to see our natural environment anymore. I mean, this is wonderful. Let's take good care of it.
Mm-hmm.
Here is another along that idea here. This is called Windfall Boulder. And that's how it's being constructed. It's constructed more organically and less geometrically, but the narrative is there. It's a narrative piece. So here's a boulder with a branch in it. Please take care. The sister piece to this was won Best of Ohio at the Ohio Craft Museum last year. Oh, here's my sculpture from 1971 again. So just to kind of review that, here's a wall. Here is another a drawing of a canyon, just an idea drawing. You can see the completing of the cube here. And here is a final piece. This is more organically made too, with rivers running in it and amongst it, and the layering of the landscape here. I don't know how big this piece is.
I do. Give me a second. I can pull it up. It's 104 inches
okay
pushed together.
So
no space between.
Can also be placed apart.
Right, and 34 inches tall. Just
oh, there we go.
Scale.
Yeah, nicely lit there in the gallery. Boy, narrative you draw from things, you want to honor our past. This is a Native American, modeled after a Native American bark basket. This is modeled after like a Chinese carry basket that you might see on the street in San Francisco. This is at the Museum of Fine Art in Boston. One of the early pieces. This is my first chair. Again, iconic. Everybody knows what it is. And the dialogue there, not only is it the chair, but it is the question of how something built in a fragile nature out of glass can not only exist, but then you wonder whether how careful you should be with it. Can you sit in it? Well, not. But still,
you can once.
Yeah, yeah, I could rebuild it too.
Right.
This piece is at the Carnegie Museum of Fine Art in Pittsburgh. This is at the Imagine Museum in Florida, which, thanks to Habatat, their relationship with them. This is full scale. Here's a piano in the background. This is the second chair that I built. It's a wingback chair. It's 46 inches tall and was built in sections and assembled, put together. How much time do we have?
We've got about 8 more minutes.
I'll tell you a short story. This piece made it through the magnitude 6.8 earthquake in Washington, D.C. We got a call from the collector, the Minkoffs, who you may or may not know. God bless him. And he gave me the old, well, I've got some good news and I've got some bad news. And he told me that at that earthquake, he had lost a tremendous amount of work. And he said, the good news is your piece made it through fine, which was great. So he invited Marty and myself to come down to Washington and check everything out and help him collect all the pieces from the rubble that were other pieces in his collection and organize them for his insurance people. But we deinstalled this piece for him, cleaned it and put it back, and everything was good. So it was a very nice story about, but we still have to be careful with these pieces. I'm not saying that we can't. This is chair number 4, I think. And this is in Habatat's collection too. This piece is made in 4 pieces. The back, the seat, and the 2 sides sit separately. And then they kind of nest together. And it's also pretty much full size, I think. And this piece is debuting there at Habatat now, or coming up. I think you guys have it out. And here it is. It's a metaphor, and the ladder as a metaphor. It's titled Reach, and we finished it. I finished it this spring in time to get it photographed and sent up. And here it is. It's about 7 feet tall, and it's imbued with a lot of dialogue, and you can kind of build your own dialogue around it. It's very cool.
Definitely a masterpiece.
Yeah. I like ending my talks with this. This is great. This is a bulletin board at 2nd grade elementary school here in Cleveland. So I became Artist of the Week a few years ago for 1 week, and they got these images off the internet. And I like to say, you've arrived when you become Artist of the Week in 2nd grade. So that's all I have. If you have questions, I'd be glad to answer them.
Thank you, Brent. That was incredible. I really enjoyed learning about you and your work and your career. And I'll have you stop sharing your screen if you don't mind.
Okay, stop sharing.
Yeah, stop sharing. Some of the works I've seen come through the gallery have stayed and found homes, and we've shipped them to California, and some have become part of museums, as you well know.
Mm-hmm.
It's great. It's good to hear that we need to sell more of your work outside the country. You got to get your work outside of in more institutions, which is something we can work on. But I'm a huge fan of your work and what you create.
Thank you. Yeah.
As a child, I loved the anvils when I used to come see them, and in the gallery. And now seeing this huge, immense ladder, I sent pictures of it to the Michigan Glass Project, which is the pipe functional show, and it was blowing their mind to understand what could be done in their field on a more impressive scale and a refined scale. So thank you for joining me today. Thank you, everybody, for asking great questions.
Thank you very much. Okay.
Thank you so much. Loved it. Thank you.
Nice to talk to you guys.
Thank you. Awesome. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Again, this will be replayed on YouTube for those who miss it. Like, subscribe, share, hit that bell. We do these talks every single weekend. I want to say happy Mother's Day to all the mothers out there. I hope you have lots of flowers arrive to your home tomorrow. If not, call me. I'll send you some. Much love.
Okay.
We'll see you all soon.
Okay.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Brent.